There's something about beach houses that should feel safe. Sunlight on the water, warm wood floors, and the gentle lull of crashing waves. But what happens when the tide brings in something else? Something darker. In tonight's terrifying video, we're diving deep into 3 true beach house horror stories, each more disturbing than the last. These aren't your typical summer getaways. These are nightmares wrapped in ocean breeze and salt-slicked walls. First, in The Tides That Spoke Her Name, a woman joins her sister for a quiet weekend by the shore, only to be stalked by an invisible presence that knows her name and wants her place. Next, in the AirBnB Nobody Listed, a couple rents a luxury home that doesn't appear on any map or booking app. As the knocks get louder and mirrors start lying, they realize they aren't the ones staying in the house. The house is staying in them. And finally, What We Found Beneath the Sandstone House tells the story of a man who buys his dream coastal home, only to uncover a basement door that leads somewhere no living person should go, and a price that must be paid in blood and salt. Don't look away. Don't skip ahead, because the ocean doesn't just swallow ships, it swallows people. Let's begin. Story 1. The Tides That Spoke Her Name. I never liked the beach. Even as a kid, I hated the feeling of sand between my toes and the eerie vastness of the open ocean. But when my sister, Carly, begged me to join her for a weekend getaway in a rented beach house on the outer edges of Seabright Cove, I caved. The house was perched at the very edge of the rocky shore, isolated, crumbling slightly with salt-rusted railings and wind-worn paint. It was cheap, too cheap for the views it promised. Red flag number 1. But Carly said it was charming and cozy, and I wanted to believe her. The first night, we opened wine on the back deck and listened to the waves crash in the dark. There was a fog, thicker than anything I'd ever seen, swallowing the moonlight and pressing in around the edges of the house like damp hands. We joked that it felt haunted. Carly laughed. I didn't. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to the sound of the tide howling like a voice, long, drawn-out vowels twisting through the wind. Alyssa. I froze. That was my name. Not just a voice in the wind. It was my name, whispered just outside my window. I crept toward it, my phone flashlight shaking. The window looked out onto the deck. Nothing. I convinced myself it was a dream. The ocean plays tricks. The wind and the waves, they mimic things. I shut the curtain and forced myself to sleep. The next morning, Carly was already outside, her hair tangled by salt air. She looked tired. She said she didn't sleep well either, kept hearing footsteps upstairs when no one was there. "But you were moving around, right?" she asked. "I never left my bed," I said. She blinked. "Then who did?" That night we locked everything, windows, doors, even the deck gate. We slept in the same room like kids afraid of thunder. Around 3 a.m. when we both shot up, the floorboards above us creaked again, slow, deliberate pacing. I texted the rental owner. No reply. The signal was already weak out there. We sat there, silent, until the footsteps stopped. Then came something far worse, a dragging sound across the roof. Carly gripped my arm. "There's something up there," she whispered. The dragging stopped directly above us. Tap, tap, tap. 3 knocks echoed against the ceiling like a warning. I thought of the voice last night, the way it hissed my name. We didn't sleep. At dawn, we checked the roof access, completely locked from the inside. No signs of forced entry, no footprints, just small patches of dried sand scattered across the wood floor upstairs, the kind you'd get from bare, wet feet. That evening we found something behind the house buried beneath the deck, small crude carvings in the wood. They formed a spiral, like a whirlpool, etched deeply into the beam. At its center was a name, over and over again. Alyssa. That's when I noticed something worse. The spiral pattern wasn't only under the deck. It was on the inside of my bedroom closet, too. Fresh, sharp, and next to it, a single fingerprint in wet sand. Carly wanted to leave. I said no, because now I needed to know what this thing was and why it knew my name. By the next morning, Carly had packed her bags. She wanted out. I didn't blame her, but I couldn't shake the pull of the thing that called my name in the tide. It wasn't just a ghost story anymore. Something in that house knew me. I'm going with or without you, Carly said, trembling. You're not thinking straight. But I was. I was thinking clearer than ever. You didn't hear your name, I said. It was mine. I need to figure out why. That was the last thing I said to her before she left. She took the car and drove back to the city. I stayed. The silence after she left wasn't normal. It was thick, like the air was weighted. The waves outside were calmer than they should have been. Dead calm. No wind, no gulls. Just a flat ocean that seemed to be watching. I went up to the attic, the one directly above where we heard the dragging. I brought a flashlight, though daylight still poured in through the single round window, and in the center of the wooden floorboards, I found it. A trap door. It wasn't part of the rental listing. In fact, it blended almost too well with the flooring, as though someone had gone to great lengths to hide it. I pulled it open, coughing at the wave of salt and rot that hit me. A ladder led down into a space between the walls, maybe an old crawl space, but the smell down there wasn't mildew. It was brine and decay. I climbed down. At the bottom was sand, real sand, damp and clinging to the wooden slats, and bones, tiny bones, dozens of them, crabs, birds, fish, and maybe something bigger. And then the carvings, hundreds of spirals, every surface, overlapping, rushed, desperate. Some were scratched so deep into the wood that the frame had begun to crack. And at the heart of every spiral, Alyssa, my name, over and over. That's when the water started dripping, not from above, but from the walls themselves, salt water, trickling in narrow rivulets, pooling at my feet. I scrambled back up the ladder, but the trap door slammed shut above me, pitch black. The space tightened around me, like the air was pressing in, like the house knew I was down there. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. Then a voice hissed beside my ear, right beside me. You let her leave, but you stayed. I don't remember how I got out. I woke up in the sand, face down, on the beach behind the house, my mouth full of salt, my hair tangled with seaweed. The house stood there, still, silent. When I walked back inside, the spiral carvings were gone, every last one, even the ones I saw with my own eyes, even the one in my closet. Only one thing remained, a message on the bedroom mirror, written in wet salt residue, as though a damp finger had traced it. She took your name. You took her place. I checked my phone, a missed call from Carly. I returned it, but it wasn't her who answered. It was my voice, calling from her number. Hi, my voice said on the other end. Just letting you know I made it back safe. You're still at the beach house, right? My knees gave out. The woman pretending to be me. She sounded like me, laughed like me, spoke like me, but it wasn't me. I'll come pick you up in a few days, the voice added, still cheerful. Try not to get lost in the tide, Alyssa. Click. I stared out at the waves. The ocean was rising, and it was calling my name again. Story 2, the AirBnB Nobody Listed. Maggie and I needed a break. After 2 years of stress, a near breakup, and one awkward attempt at couples therapy, we were desperate to reset. That's when I found the listing. Private oceanfront villa, disconnected bliss. No reviews, no ratings, just 5 pictures and a $69 a night price tag. I should have been suspicious, but the photos were stunning. Minimalist wood paneling, floor-to-ceiling glass, and a private beach with no other homes in sight. And after a few back and forths with the owner, who went by the name Lexi, I booked it. Lexi sent all the access info via email. There was no actual address, just a GPS pin and instructions. Drive until the paved road ends. Go 2 miles past the last beach sign. Turn left at the rusted buoy tied to a fence. You'll see the dunes. The house is behind them. That's how horror movies start, I know. But we weren't thinking like that. We just wanted peace. Solitude. We found the house just like she said. Modern, clean, somehow cooler than the pictures. It didn't feel like a rental. It felt lived in, but in an uncanny way. The fruit on the counter was fresh. The beds were made. The water ran hot immediately. It was like we'd never left home, except it was better. The first night we lit candles, listened to the waves, and made love with the windows wide open. The breeze was clean, almost too clean. No bugs, no humidity, no sound beyond the distant tide and creaking wood beams. That night, we slept deeply, until the knocking. At 3:12 a.m., a series of slow, heavy knocks echoed from somewhere in the house. Not at the front door, inside the walls. I bolted upright. Maggie was already awake. "You heard that?" I whispered. She nodded. Her eyes were wide and locked on the far wall. We listened for 5 full minutes, holding our breath. Nothing. When morning came, we explored the house. Walls, vents, everything. We didn't find any loose panels or hollow spots. But Maggie noticed something strange. Her phone, which she'd left plugged in overnight, was completely dead. Fried. Wouldn't even turn on. We tried mine. Same thing. Total brick. That night, we agreed to sleep with the lights on, but they wouldn't stay on. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the power cut out. Every nightlight, bulb, and charger dead in an instant. Then came the knocks, 5 of them. The third night, the knocks were louder, closer, and that's when Maggie said something that chilled me. They're following a pattern. First they were in the kitchen wall, last night the hallway, now they're inside the bedroom wall. She was right. The next morning we decided to leave. No signal, no Wi-Fi, no service even with the car GPS. When we tried to follow the way we came, the roads were gone. Literally gone, washed out by dunes or blocked by thick sea fog that didn't lift no matter how far we drove. It was like the house had moved. Or we had. Back at the house, something had changed. The photos on the walls weren't the same as before. The first day, they were abstract ocean art. Now, photos of us, taken while we slept. The angles matched our bed position, the clothes we wore. One photo even had my arm hanging off the bed exactly like the night before. But we never heard a camera, never saw a light. We searched the house top to bottom and found no cameras. But inside the hall closet, behind a false panel, Maggie found something else. A journal, leather-bound, dusty. Inside were pages and pages of entries, all written in different handwriting, all dated in the past 10 years. Dozens of names, all people who had stayed here, all trapped. Each entry started normal, vacation, escape, joy, and devolved into fear, then madness. The last entry was from someone named Grace, written just 6 days earlier. They knock louder when you try to leave. They only come at night. Don't look in the mirror. Don't answer the door. And whatever you do, don't pick up the phone when it rings. That's how they get in. That night, we made a plan. We'd break a window, hike the dunes on foot, and head for the main road. We could follow the stars if we had to, anything to escape. But at 3:12 a.m., We woke up to something worse than knocks. The doorbell. It rang once, then again and again. 3 slow chimes. Someone or something was outside or inside. I reached for a weapon, but there was nothing. The knife block was gone. Maggie screamed and pointed to the mirror across the room. There was a third reflection. Behind us, smiling. Maggie screamed. I spun around. No one was there, but in the mirror the third reflection stayed. A tall figure with long limbs, pale skin, and an impossible smile, stretching wider than any human face should. The mirror cracked down the middle with a pop like a joint dislocating. We ran. We didn't pack, didn't grab anything, just bolted out the front door and across the sand, ignoring the sting of seagrass and the cold bite of the air. Behind us the house was perfectly still. Not even the lights flickered. But the doorbell kept ringing. Even from hundreds of feet away, we heard it. Like a siren behind glass. 3 slow chimes, again and again. We hiked the dunes for hours, but they never ended. No roads, no fences, just hills of white sand and choking fog. The GPS still refused to load. Our compass app spun in slow circles like it had lost its mind. Eventually we saw lights again, warm, golden lights in the distance. A roof, a shape, salvation. We approached cautiously. It was the house. Again, same angles, same damn patio, same everything. Maggie broke. She dropped to her knees and cried. "I don't think we left," she sobbed. "I think it let us go, just to bring us back." We refused to go inside. We stayed outside on the beach until dawn. As the first sunbeam broke through the mist, the house looked different. Old, boarded up, covered in rust and rot. The glass windows were shattered, the walls warped with age. The beach chairs were missing legs, the fruit bowl inside now moldy and black. We peeked through a crack in the front window. No furniture, no lights, no signs of life. Like no one had been there in years. Then we saw the photo. Pinned to the inside wall, it was us, standing on the beach, taken from inside the house. The timestamp read, yesterday, 3:12 a.m. We ran back toward the dunes. The fog thickened again, but this time we found something else. A cell tower, just a small one, maybe 2 stories tall. We bolted to the base of it, and finally, got a bar of signal. I called my brother. He answered, confused, groggy. "We're trapped. Send someone. There's this beach house. It's cursed, haunted. I don't know." But the call started glitching, not cutting out, repeating. My voice echoed through the line again and again. "We're trapped. Send someone. We're trapped. Send someone. We're trapped." Then a new voice joined. Not mine, not Maggie's, just a whisper, smooth and cold. "You are the rental now." Click. The phone died. We turned to run and saw headlights in the distance. A car. Someone had come. We waved our arms, shouting. The vehicle slowed and stopped. A man stepped out, tall, tanned, with a friendly face. He looked confused. "You guys okay?" he asked. "This place wasn't on the map. Weird signal out here. I'm supposed to be checking into a beach rental." I blinked. "A beach rental?" He nodded. "Yeah. Some lady named Lexi sent me a pin. Said it was oceanfront." I felt my stomach twist. "What platform did you book it through?" He looked down at his phone. "Huh, that's weird. It's gone. No app, no messages. Just a calendar event." I looked at Maggie. She was pale. The man smiled awkwardly. "Anyway, I think it's that house over there, right?" We turned to follow his gaze. The house was new again. Pristine glass, bright paint, golden light glowing from inside. I backed away. "Don't go in there." The man furrowed his brow. "Why not?" But before I could answer, I heard the door open. Lexi stood in the doorway. She wore my face, perfectly. She waved to the man. You made it. Welcome." He walked toward her. I tried to scream, to stop him, but Maggie grabbed my arm, and when I looked at her, she wasn't Maggie anymore. Her eyes were too wide, her smile too still, her voice too familiar. "We have a new guest now. Let's not be greedy." The world bent. I was inside again, but this time the walls felt different, tighter, and the mirrors were full of faces. Some I recognized, some I didn't, all of them screaming. Story 3. What We Found Beneath the Sandstone House. My fiancée Ellie always dreamed of owning a beach house, not renting, owning, a place where we could grow old, drink coffee on the porch, and listen to the waves crash. She found it one random afternoon, a sandstone cottage at the farthest edge of Rook's Hollow. A stretch of coastline locals warned us was eroding fast and full of bad luck. But Ellie loved it. "Character," she said, running her fingers along the weather-worn stone. "It has secrets." I didn't know she meant that literally. The house was old, but beautiful, sunken slightly into the sand, with rounded corners and shell-encrusted walls. The wood floors creaked like they were clearing their throat, and the air inside always smelled faintly of damp books. The previous owner had died there, alone. No family to take the place, so it went up for auction. We bought it in cash. The first week we painted, cleaned, made it ours. I didn't think much about the basement door that wouldn't open, probably warped shut. The agent said it just led to an old storm shelter, flooded years ago. But every night we heard something. Thumps beneath the floor. Ellie said it was the tide shifting underneath the house, sand compacting, ocean pressure, logic. But when I stood still at midnight, I felt it. Not below, but within the house, like it had lungs, and it was breathing. We joked about it, called it the house ghost. But Ellie's jokes got darker. "He's probably watching you shower," she'd say with a smirk, or whispering in your ear while you sleep. By the second week, I noticed Ellie had changed. She'd get up in the middle of the night, barefoot and silent, walking toward the basement door, just standing there. When I'd call her name, she'd turn slowly, blinking like she'd just woken up. She didn't remember it in the morning. And the basement door? It started bleeding salt. A thick crust of dried brine collected beneath the frame, like water had been pooling just behind it. Salt water. We tried to pry it open, but the hinges wouldn't budge. Ellie pressed her ear to it once and went completely still for nearly 5 minutes. When she backed away, she just said, "It's not locked. It's waiting." I didn't sleep that night. I sat by the door with a crowbar, watching it. Nothing happened, but when I blinked just once, I swear I saw the handle move. A few days later, Ellie was gone. Not left. Gone. We'd just finished dinner. I went to brush my teeth. She stayed behind to wash dishes. 10 minutes later, the faucet was still running. I walked back into the kitchen, and she wasn't there. The door was wide open. The beach was empty. Her footprints led straight to the tide and stopped at the edge of the foam. I screamed her name until my voice gave out. I called the Coast Guard, the police, everyone. No sign, no body, nothing. Just that door, the one in the basement. That night I heard her voice coming from the other side. "It's okay, baby. I found it. You just have to open the door." I ran. I slept in the car. But the next morning I came back. I had to. I needed to know if she was in there. I drilled through the lock. The smell hit me first. Rotting brine and something deeper. Ancient. I opened the door. Inside wasn't a basement. It was a stone staircase, spiraling downward into sand. Walls carved like tunnels. Symbols etched deep into the rock. Things older than English. Older than Latin. I called out, "Ellie?" The tunnel whispered back, "She brought you. Now bring us more." I should have run. but I went down instead. I don't remember how long I was under. There was no time in that place. Just water, endless dripping, something humming in the walls, a rhythm older than thought. I found her shoe, then her voice, then something else, wearing her face. It smiled at me, even as salt water dripped from its eyes. You can't leave unless someone takes your place. I screamed, fought, ran back up the stairs. The door closed behind me, and now the house is clean, cozy. I painted over the stains. It even has Wi-Fi again. I listed it last night. Cheap rates, great view, no history, just a simple tagline. The tide is calling. Come stay a while. I never meant for anyone else to come. But after weeks alone in that house, hearing Ellie's voice from the basement, watching her reflection in windows that shouldn't reflect, I broke. I listed the place under a fake name. Peaceful beach retreat. Ocean front. No mention of the salt bleeding from the walls. No warning about the thing beneath the stairs. I just needed someone else to see it. That's the rule. One in, one out. I didn't believe it at first, but the night after Ellie disappeared, the voice told me again. Clearer this time. From under the floorboards, from inside the drains, from my own mouth as I slept. You stay, unless another replaces you. And I didn't want to stay. So I waited. The couple arrived last Friday, James and Rosa, young, happy, just like we were. They thought it was a steal, just wanted to get away. Rosa loved the rustic charm. James made dumb jokes about the creaking wood, and I smiled, acted like the host, said I'd just finished repairs, told them they'd have the whole place to themselves. Then I left. But I didn't go far. I parked down the road and waited. That night, the lights in the house flickered, just like they had for me. I watched as Rosa came out onto the porch, confused, calling James. Then the basement door creaked open behind her, and the wind stopped. I should have felt relief, but I didn't, because the next morning the house had changed again, brighter, newer. The walls repainted themselves, the salt crust gone, as if the house had been fed. I stepped inside, and she was there, Ellie, smiling, perfect. She stood in the kitchen like nothing had happened. "Welcome home, baby," she said. "You did it." I ran to her, sobbing, but when I touched her, she was cold, like sea stone, like glass left under the tide, and when I looked into her eyes, I saw 100 others, all the faces of those who fed the house before me. I tried to leave again. I packed. I ran. I drove until my car hit the edge of the road. And there was the house, again. No matter which way I turned, it was always there, always waiting. The door slightly ajar, like it was smiling. So I stopped trying. I started helping. A family last week, a solo traveler before that. They don't always stay long. The ones who resist get swallowed quicker, but the ones who explore, who ask questions, who open that door, they never leave. I don't list the house anymore. I don't need to. The house finds people now. It whispers in their dreams, sends them ads that don't exist, pins in emails that vanish. People show up without remembering how they got here, and I welcome them, just like Ellie welcomed me. Because now I know the truth. This house isn't haunted. It's alive, and it needs to feed, and if I want to stay with her, if I want to hold her hand each night while the tide speaks in ancient tongues beneath the floor, then I have to make sure the house never goes hungry. So I keep the porch light on, the door unlocked, and the ocean always listening. So, still dreaming of that perfect beach getaway. Tonight you learned what really waits behind those charming shorefront porches and sunlit windows. Not every beach house was built for the living, and not every wave that crashes outside is made of water. From voices whispering your name through the tide, to reflections that don't match your reality, to basement doors that open into something older than time itself. These stories are more than just ghost tales. They're warnings, because when the ocean calls you by name, you don't always get to come back. If this video chilled you to the bone, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more horrifying true stories every week. And if you've ever had a strange experience by the coast, or stayed somewhere that just didn't feel right, tell us your story in the comments. But whatever you do, don't answer the door. Don't look too long in the mirror. And if you hear your name in the tide, run.